My name is Ram. I have the distinct pleasure of inviting to deliver a welcome address to this august audience, Mr. Kevin Lane. Kevin, as some of you have met this morning, he's an advisory board member both of Cedar and IBS Intelligence. A former McKinsey partner and CEO, and he is also an advisory board member at GWF AG. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome Mr. Kevin Lane to deliver a welcome address.
Thanks very much, Ron, and good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. I need to begin with a confession. I've been blessed with a varied career with about 15 years in Asia, 18 years in Europe, some time in the US. I've worked as a McKinsey partner, a university professor, an executive, a CEO, board member, advisor, investor. I've worked in a bunch of different industries: consumer, retail, automotive, aerospace, pharma, biotech, venture capital, professional services. I've even worked as an apprentice plumber and a door-to-door salesman, but I usually don't say that part. Here's my confession. The one industry in which I have very little experience is banking. I've often thought that's been a good thing for me. I'm certain it's been a good thing for the industry. But I'd like to point out that despite the fact that I haven't really worked in banking, or maybe because of it, I have a deep respect for the industry. I think that banking is a noble profession because banking has played a central role in making human progress possible. So when I think about the future of banking, I naturally think about the future of human progress. And we have ahead of us this morning 4 very interesting panels that will dig into the details related to the future of banking. What I'd like to do in the next few minutes is share some reflections on broader themes that will shape the success and failure of business and society, and that therefore should be relevant for banks, I think, that are seeking to be a part of that future. I will also do what the Chinese call 抛砖引玉. 抛砖引玉 means to cast out a brick in order to encourage back a piece of jade. So to throw out some crude thoughts in the expectation that you all, over the course of the morning, will return with elegant pieces of jade. Specifically, I want to point to 4 themes or trends, each of which is, I think, a good thing, and each of which leads us potentially to a very bad thing. The first of these is quantity. By that I mean more of everything. Generally, a good thing leads to a potential very bad thing, which is mediocrity and commoditization of everything. The second theme is speed. That is, doing everything faster than ever before and constantly accelerating. Speed's not necessarily a bad thing. It can be a good thing. It can also lead us to be overwhelmed and unable to respond. The third theme is individuality. That is me. Me can be a good thing. Too much me can lead us to fragmentation, loss of social cohesion. And the fourth one is uncertainty. Uncertainty, I think, is a good thing and fundamental to the human condition. It can also lead to fear that is debilitating and destabilizing. A bit more on each of these. First, in terms of quantity, I think the evidence is clear that our future is about more of pretty much everything. In 2010, 2 zettabytes of data were created and replicated worldwide. A zettabyte, as everyone here sort of knows, is a trillion gigabytes. By 2020, that figure was 64 zettabytes, and in 2025, 180. In our daily lives, we all experience this. We have more emails and texts than ever before, more meetings, more entertainment options. TikTok has over 700 million uploads per month. Shein launches 60,000 new products a month. The number of books published in 2025 was 15 times what it was in 2005. Despite the fact that total industry revenue in inflation-adjusted terms declined. So more can be a great thing, a sign of material progress. It can also lead us to mediocrity. If you don't believe me, take a look at your favorite streaming app. We've been flooded with copious amounts of drivel, average products, poor services, pointless apps. This is true even in the scientific world. A study of 213 million scientific papers published between 1800 and 2020 showed that while the number of papers has increased exponentially, scientific advance has increased incrementally. So more does not always mean better. The second theme that I want to talk about briefly is speed. The world is already very fast, and it is clearly accelerating. The pace of change has been increasing for a while. Of course, we all know this, we all experience this. But in the past couple of years, it's become truly head-spinning. I don't need to remind this group, especially about how much the pace of technology adoption has increased with each new major introduction. Or perhaps that the average tenure of a company in the S&P 500 is now about 15 years, down from 20 years in 2010, 36 years in 1980. In many businesses, the strategy development cycle has shrunk dramatically. A recent Accenture study shows that 82% of C-suite leaders anticipated the rate of change in 2026 to be even faster than 2025, and only about half of them felt very prepared to deal with it. Amongst the general employee population, it was a far lower number. About a third felt very prepared to deal with it. I think speed is great. Speed, it's hard to argue with faster service, shorter time to market, quicker processing. But people, I think, are increasingly feeling overwhelmed, unable to adjust before the next wave of change hits. I work with an AI company where even engineers working on the front lines of the technology tell me that they are not sure they can keep up. Some of you may know the concept of overspeed in aerospace, right? Every plane has a maximum speed that it can fly at, and of course when it exceeds that speed, it will suffer structural failure. I don't think we know what that speed is for humans, but I think at the very least we need to be aware of how speed can become excessive, leading people to become overwhelmed, hyper-stressed, underproductive. The third theme that I wanted to talk about is individuality, or as I said, simply me. Our world is fast becoming a place of personalized everything: entertainment, advertisement, medicine, experiences, even personalized prices. Our collective future has become, instead, many individual futures. I think that, much like the other trends I've been pointing to, this is positive in some ways. For example, new personalized therapies for the treatment of cancer, products that are tailored to individual needs and desires. But it's also scary in some ways, in particular the weakening of social bonds, the collapse of a sense of community, the retreat to ourselves or to our insular tribes. People, especially younger ones, now spend less time socializing. They have replaced face-to-face interaction with what's called social snacking. I love that expression. They volunteer less, they trust less. In the US, fewer than 20% of young adults, that's aged 18 to 29, believe that most people can be trusted. In a ranking of, and that's compared to 40% of older generations. In a ranking of 17 industries from the Edelman's Trust Barometer, financial services ranks 16, above only social media. Interestingly, trust in traditional banks has risen 10 points over the past 10 years, but with important nuances. Globally, trust in traditional banks sits at 66%, higher than financial advisory, investment management, FinTechs at 53. Poor crypto is at 44. But the more interesting finding is that trust levels vary a lot by income level and country. High income earners report a 73% trust score in the traditional banking. Low earners come in at 59%. People in developed economies report much lower trust. They're at the bottom of the league tables. For almost, if you look at the bottom of the league tables, you see pretty much all of Europe, including the UK. FinTech, for example, is trusted by 39% of people in the UK, 26% of people in France. We humans are fundamentally social creatures. This characteristic, I would argue, is probably the most important factor in our rise to apex predator status on the planet. But I think there's still an open question of whether and how we can deliver the benefits of personalization without the without the fragmentation, the loss of community, increasing loneliness and weakened trust that are happening at the same time. Professor Bob Putnam wrote 25 years ago about a world in which people were bowling alone, a world in which social capital was collapsing. Such a world can, in theory, rebuild its social capital. That has happened in the past. But it doesn't happen on its own, especially in the face of the powerful new technologies that appeal to our self-orientations aggressively and, as we know, all day long. Maybe there's a role for the banking industry to play in this. Banking at its core is a part of our social glue. Think of Jimmy Stewart in the movie It's a Wonderful Life explaining how a savings bank works. Social capital may not be on your balance sheets, but it is foundational, I think, to our collective progress. The fourth theme that I wanted to talk about is uncertainty. This one I think matters a lot, and I think it's going to become much more challenging for us all to deal with. Uncertainty is a fundamental aspect of the human condition, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, research shows that people tend to be attracted to the excitement and opportunity of a world that has some uncertainty in it. But in the conversations that I have these days, the data that I read, it's clear that for many people, uncertainty is morphing into something more pernicious. A deep fear, a sense of dread, rather than viewing uncertainty as a door behind which lies something new, people increasingly view that door as hiding a monster. For some meaningful segment of society, uncertainty is turning into certainty that something bad is going to happen. And that kind of extreme uncertainty tends to destabilize and complicates decision making. It hinders change, it halts progress, whether in corporate organizations or society at large. I'd argue that each of these four trends have been around for a while, actually. They're not brand new. The products of technological change, financial distress, a pandemic, of course, a generational shift. But each has been accelerated dramatically by, and here it is, AI. Let's see, what am I, 8-9 minutes in, and only now do I say AI. I suspect that you see this in your work every day. I imagine also that you, like me, are constantly changing the way you work with this new technology, right? It's extraordinary. I'm working with 2 AI native companies at the moment to see how their work with their clients, their business models, their ways of work are shifting, not every year, but every few months. A friend of mine who runs a business recently sent me a strategy paper he'd written for some big moves his company is planning on making. It was a serious document, cogently argued, data supported, and with important implications for the future of the company. When we got on the phone to discuss it, I said, Jim, I like the paper, but I have to tell you, I don't think you wrote all of this. And he said, wrote all of it? Are you kidding? I haven't even read all of it. I think we're going to see much more of that. We all know that AI can do amazing things, create possibilities for quantity and speed and personalization far beyond what we imagined a few years ago. And partly as a consequence of that, we will very likely allow AI to push us relentlessly down a path that will also lead to mediocrity, overwhelming speed, social fragmentation, and destabilizing fear. What this will mean for business, society, government remains, I think, a pretty wide open question. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. There is one force that can check AI, channel its impact, moderate its excesses, reassure those who are panicking, and that is leadership. This may be one of the most challenging and exhilarating, I would argue, moments in history for leaders. Leading an organization, never an easy thing, has been getting tougher for a while. I'm sure many of you have experienced this as well. The landscape of business leadership has shifted in the past few years. The work has grown in scope and complexity, and the personal stresses have certainly amplified. None of us has been trained to lead in an environment like the one now emerging, but I think we can learn to do so. I think it requires certain leaders to have hard skills they didn't have before, and by that I'm referring to a basic understanding of these new technologies. I think in boardrooms, in C-suites, there should be similar expectations around the understanding of technology that have traditionally been the case for understandings around finance. But this kind of leadership requires something that AI will never have as well, and that's humanity. AIs lack emotion, which is a vital component of human intelligence. And I apologize to any hyper-rational people who may be in the room. AIs lack an appreciation of uncertainty, which, as I have said now a couple of times, is fundamental to what it means to be human. So they lack judgment. As a consequence, they may do a good job of recommending paths to take on technical decisions, but they'll always come up short on what Ronald Heifetz called adaptive challenges, that is, the hard choices, those without straightforward answers, without yes-no answers that are required to make any organization succeed sustainably. I suspect that bankers and technologists, those in this room, will need to find ways to help clients and customers navigate this world. And I hope that banking, which has been so central to getting humans to where we are today, can play a positive role in getting us where we need to be. A world that is in which more is quantity is combined with distinctiveness, where speed is tempered with moderation, where individuality thrives alongside community, and where uncertainty rests on a substructure of stability. It's a small task, I know. I leave it to you. Thanks very much.